Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and the possibility of compassionate degrowth. I probably won't expound on that tonight, but you know, it means like what it sounds like, if that makes any sense. Another day, another set of extreme weather events, articles, studies, journal papers, etc., that are pointing toward bad things in the near future. So yeah, big news. What's been going on in the States? It's actually ramping up into some very cold weather over the next few days, especially in the Midwest, northern Midwest, Northeast of the U.S. Obviously, Canada is, off the charts cold. I am so happy that I'm not traveling and working. I used to travel and work through the East Coast and the Midwest quite a bit, especially during the wintertime. And I've been, through all kinds of weather. But I don't want to be near this. And I'm not. I'm in California, where it is 60 degrees currently at 10 p.m. at night. And it actually feels really balmy, almost tropical. So how's that for contrast? Going to read a little bit from this article from Up Rocks. Experts are warning people not to breathe deeply or talk outside ahead of the polar vortex. This is by Stacy Ritson from Today. The majority of the United States will experience a deep freeze thanks to a polar vortex, which will bring a wave of cold air that normally spins in the atmosphere of the North Pole down into the Great Lakes. Why is the polar vortex coming down here? That's because warm air is moving into the Arctic, where it shouldn't be. That's thanks to climate change, or global warming, if you like. Meanwhile, a looming snowstorm is about to cause chaos for the Deep South. Approximately 1/4 of the country will wake up to sub-zero temperatures, and Wednesday might bring about literally the coldest day on record in Chicago, with a projected high of 14 below zero. That is just insane. I've never been in that cold of weather. I've been in 5 degrees. I've been in 2 degrees. Minus 14 is a high. I have no idea what that feels like. National Weather Service in Des Moines, Iowa, issued a chilling warning to residents, no pun intended, that the weather will be the coldest air many of us will have ever experienced, and for people to avoid taking deep breaths and minimize talking while outdoors. Temperatures in the upper Midwest had already dipped below zero ahead of the polar vortex on Sunday morning, with International Falls, Minnesota breaking a half-century-long record at 45 below zero. But apparently that's just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, maybe pun intended. Some locations in the Midwest will be below zero continuously for 48 to 72 hours. Whew, that is the area from North Dakota to northern Illinois will likely be hit with the hardest cold, while plunging temperatures that can cause frostbite in mere minutes. In other words, people are legitimately freaking out, and for good reason. A map that says, Jesus Christ, it's cold out. Fuck, it's cold. Cold as fuck. Fuck you, winter. The cold weather is fucking fucked. This here is some fucked up shit. And California says, LOL. Oh no. That's hilarious. Anyways, indeed, crazy temperatures. Moving on to Australia, where it's really, really hot. What's causing all these extreme weather events? I wonder what it could be. If you're playing along at home, it's not a new ice age. If you're playing the climate change board game at home, it is not the solar minimum. You lose. Hot air from Australia causes New Zealand heat wave. Heat wave. This is from today. Hot air from Australia has helped to produce scorching temperatures for many parts of New Zealand this week. Parts of Hawke's Bay on the east coast of New Zealand's North Island and Richmond in the Nelson area of the Upper South Island topped the scale at 35 degrees on Monday afternoon. That is dang hot. Richmond had a minimum temperature of 24.3 degrees on Monday morning, 0.6 degrees hotter than the previous record, in records that have been kept for 157 years. So that was a minimum temperature. I don't know what that is. Sorry, guys, I got to translate to Fahrenheit because nobody knows what that feels like. In the US, to us, that just seems like 23 degrees. Let's see. C to F. That's 73 degrees. So yeah, that's quite high. 23. Oh, sorry. Let me get it straight. Yeah. 23.7. Yeah, 75 degrees. That is the low temperature, which is quite hot for New Zealand, apparently. Moving back, or trying to move back, Alex McMillan, a senior lecturer in environmental health at the University of Otago, urged people to take care in the extreme heat, especially if you're elderly, pregnant, or already have a medical condition. As year on year we break new heat records as a result of our collective failure to act on climate change, New Zealand urgently needs a climate change and health adaptation plan so that we can ensure people's health is protected from the impacts of climate change, including these higher summer temperatures. The good news is that by investing now in well-designed climate action, including homes and public buildings that are easy to cool with fossil fuels and better city planning, we can stay healthier and more resilient to heat events like this and reduce our climate pollution at the same time. I just had an image of like an ice age person, like, close to death from wet bulb temperatures, like lying there, like sweating or not sweating because they've, gone past the point of heat exposure. And they're like, here comes the ice age. Anyways, that's why I get so many downvotes on this channel, is because I like to poke the deniers. And I know it's probably not good for my health, but it's just so fun. I poke the deniers and then they're like, ooh, let me just give you a downvote. Take that, Black Bear News. As year on year we break new heat records, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it so hot? Tell us. Take several helpings of hot air from Australia. That's hot air. And the subtropics, some long and sunny days, warm ground, New Zealand mountains, and nearby anti-cyclone, accompanied by light winds, and you have the recipe for this week's heat wave. Heat wave. Usually a very warm air mass from the Australian outback would be cooled significantly by contact with the Tasman Sea as it moves across to New Zealand. However, this summer, with another marine heat wave, that's heat wave underway, and sea surface temperatures in parts of Tasman up to 4 degrees warmer than average, that's 4 degrees warmer, that modifying influence on the lowest layers of heated air has been significantly reduced. How much of this particular hot spell can be sheeted home to climate change is difficult to quantify, I wonder. But the marine heat wave for the second consecutive summer is perhaps the clearest indicator of such change. I'm just having such a good time with this. Ben Knoll, a meteorologist with New Zealand's National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, discussed in a recent paper in the journal Nature how marine heat waves would increase with climate change. Increase with climate change. There had been a doubling in the number of marine heat waves, days between 1982 and 2016. Feeding the heat wave this week are two sources of hot Air. Not only is the air coming from Queensland and New South Wales, but also because of the position of the high pressure system north of the country, steamy, subtropical air is being scooped up and added to the mix. That's the end of that. Sorry, I won't annoy you anymore with my good times. Moving on. Moving on to this article that I didn't really get a chance to read much of. Well, I kind of covered it yesterday. Japan's squid industry in crisis amid record low catches. We keep hearing this. Despite peak squid fishing season normally taking place from June to January, as many as 90% of Hakodate's 20-strong fleet of squid fishing vessels have remained in port since October due to record low catches, according to Kyoto news agency. There's no squid. Toyoji Sato of Hakodate has been fishing squid for more than 50 years, told Kyoto. This is the first time I've ended fishing this early. Fuel costs are also high, so if I take my boat out, I just sink deeper into debt. Japan has long loved consuming squid in countless forms, from ikameshi, which involves simmering the seafood with rice inside, to shiokara, a particularly pungent but popular appetizer made from fermented squid innards. That sounds delicious. The statistics in Hakodate paint a particularly bleak picture of the squid industry in decline. Fishermen reportedly caught 61,000 tons of Pacific flying squid in 2017, marking a 13% drop compared to the previous year, and less than 30% of the total squid catch 10 years earlier. Many of the 70 seafood processing companies in Hakodate alone are opting to diversify in the face of squid shortages. Moving on, I did want to read a little bit of this Chris Martenson article, which Hambone already read. But I just, not everybody follows the same channel. So want to read a little bit of this for y'all who maybe maybe don't get over to Hambone's channel. Many people are expecting some degree of approaching collapse. This is titled "Collapse is Already Here. It's a Process, Not an Event." January 25th, 2019. Chris Martenson, who I really, really respect, and I've been following his work for a little while, for a couple years. Many people are expecting some degrees of approaching collapse, be it economic, environmental, and or societal, thinking that they'll recognize the danger signs in time, as if it will be completely obvious, like a Hollywood blockbuster, complete with clear warnings from scientists, politicians, and the media. And everyone can then get busy either panicking or becoming the plucky heroes. That's not how collapse works. Collapse is a process, not an event. And it's already underway all around us. Collapse is already here. However, unlike Hollywood's vision, the early stages of collapse cause people to cling even tighter to the status quo. Instead of panic in the streets, we simply see more of the same, as those in power do all they can to remain so, while the majority of the public attempts to ignore the growing problems for as long as it possibly can. People are clinging to the status quo. For both the elite and the majority, their entire worldview and their personal sense of self depends on things not crumbling all around them, so they remain willfully blind to any evidence to the contrary. Sound familiar? Anybody experiencing this? When faced with the predicaments we warn about here at peakprosperity.com, getting an early start on prudently shifting your own personal situation is of vital strategic and tactical importance. Tens of thousands of our readers already have taken wise steps in their lives to position themselves resiliently. But most of the majority won't get started until it's entirely too late to make any difference at all, which is sad, but perhaps unavoidable given human nature. I know that plenty of people that follow this channel are already way down the road of resiliency and prepping and living outside of the dominant paradigm. And I applaud you, I commend you, and I learn from you. Thank you for continuing your work, which is your lives. If everybody around you is saying everything is awesome, it can take a long time to determine for yourself that things, in fact, aren't. This is a quote from Charles Mackay. Men, it has been well said, think in herds. It will be seen that they go mad in herds, while they only recover their senses slowly and one by one. Real collapse happens slowly and often without any sort of acknowledgement by the so-called political and economic elites until its abrupt terminal end. The degree of rot within the Soviet Union went undetected until its final implosion, catching pretty much everyone in the West, as well as in the former USSR, by surprise. Similarly, one day, people woke up and passenger pigeons were extinct. They used to literally darken the skies for hours as they migrated past, numbering in the billions. Nobody planned on their demise, and virtually nobody saw it coming. Sure, just as there always are, a few crackpots at the fringes noticed, but they were ignored until it was too late. Our view is that collapse of our current way of life is happening right now. The signs are all around us. Our invitation is for you to notice them and inquire critically what the ramifications will be, irrespective of whatever pablum our leaders and media are currently spewing. While the monetary and financial elites strain to crank out one more day, week, month, year of market stability, the ecosystems we depend on for life are vanishing. It's as if the rapture were happening, but it's the insects, plants, and animals ascending to heaven instead of we humans. I actually haven't read this whole thing, and it is super long. Pretty detailed in its explanation of what's going on. I'm going to read maybe just a little more and then move on to the last thing I wanted to read. But I will link this again below. I linked it in the video yesterday if you guys got a chance to see this. Committing ecocide be very skeptical when the cause of each new ecocidal nightmare is ascribed to natural causes. While it's entirely possible for any one ecological mishap to be due to a natural cycle, it's weak thinking to assign the same cause to dozens of troubling findings happening all over the globe. As they say in the military, once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, but three times is enemy action. Right now, Australia is in the middle of the summer season and being absolutely hammered by high heat. Sure, it gets hot during an Australian summer, but not like this. The impact has been devastating. Australia is facing an unprecedented ecological crisis, but no one's paying attention. And this is like another linked article. And they're talking about dead fish, dying bats, dying horses, dying chickens. I'm sure other animals are dying as well. They're just haven't been talked about yet. Watching the video above showing grown men crying over the loss of 100-year-old fish is heartbreaking. This fish kill is described as unprecedented and as an extinction level event, meaning it left no survivors over a long stretch of waterway. We can try to console ourselves that maybe this was just a singular event or a cluster of bad juju and worse waterway management that combined to give us this horror, but it wasn't. It's part of a larger tapestry of heat-induced misery that Australia is facing. And this has been weeks now of a heat wave that's been lasting 2 going on 3 weeks, right? How one heat wave killed a third of bat species in Australia. Over 2 days in November, record-breaking heat in Australia's north wiped out almost 1/3 of the nation's spectacled flying foxes, according to researchers. It was totally depressing, one rescuer, David White, told the BBC. Like losing family, time may be running out for New Zealand's most sacred tree. New Zealand's oldest and most sacred tree stands 60 meters from death as a fungal disease known as Quarry dieback spreads unabated across the country. The tree is believed to be around 2,500 years old, has a girth of 13.77 meters, and is more than 50 meters tall. Monarch butterfly numbers plummet. 86% in California. We've read plenty about this. The number of monarch butterflies turning up at California's overwintering sites has dropped by about 86% compared to only a year ago. And this is from January 7th, 2019. So I'm pretty sure that it was way, way down a year ago. So 86% from a year ago has to be, is 86% of what? What percentage is already gone? It was already, I want to say it was already down 80%. So we're talking about 86% of the remaining 20%. Declined an estimated 97% since the 1980s. Oh my God. Deadly deficiency at the heart of an environmental mystery during the spring and summer. I'm just kind of bopping through this article. During spring and summer, busy colonies of a duck called the common eider and other wild birds are usually seen breeding on the rocky coast around the Baltic Sea. Thousands of eager new parents vie for the best spots to build nests and catch food for the demanding young broods. Lennart Balk, an environmental biochemist at Stockholm University, witnessed a dramatically different scene when he visited Swedish coastal colonies during a 5-year period starting in 2004. Many birds couldn't fly. Others were completely paralyzed. Birds also weren't eating and had difficulty breathing. Thousands of birds were suffering and dying from this paralytic disease. We were shocked. We could see something was really wrong. It was a scary situation. The bird's disease, suspected the bird's disease was caused by a thiamine deficiency, B1, vitamin B1. Oh, it was caused by phytoplankton, loss of phytoplankton. The essential micronutrient is produced mainly by plants, including phytoplankton, bacteria, and fungi. People and animals must acquire it through their food. Okay. All right, I'm not going to read any more of this, but it's just, I'm going to read the whole thing myself, though, in a little while. I'm going to link it below, and I hope that you all take the time to read this. I'm going to read one more article that is not as long, and this is from today from Counterpunch, Complacency and the Environmental Catastrophe by Graham Peebles. Ask any reasonably well-informed person what the cause of climate change is, and the chances are they will say greenhouse gas emissions, but they would only be partially correct. While it is true that man-made GGEs are clogging Earth's lower atmosphere, trapping heat and resulting in widespread climate change, the underlying 21st century cause, in contrast to the 19th and early 20th century, when information was scarce, is something much more personal and lethal: complacency. Widespread complacency among politicians, big business, and to a lesser degree, the general public is the reason why, despite the various cries for restraint, global GGEs continue to increase. Complacency is why air pollution is getting worse in cities and towns across the world, leading to a range of health problems and premature deaths. Complacency has caused the destruction of the planet's rainforest, 85% of which have been lost through human activity, and it's why the oceans have been poisoned and robbed of fish. Complacency is fueling the greatest extinction of animal and plant species in our history. It's setting forests alight, filling oceans and rivers with plastics and other pollutants, and is the reason why the ice mass in the North Pole is melting at unprecedented rates, leading to rising sea levels, flooding, and the erosion of land, destroying homes and natural habitats, taking lives, displacing people, potentially millions. It is complacency, which a wise man once described as the root of all evil, that is causing all of this and more. The "I'm all right, Jack" mentality. And no matter how many reports are published and forecasts made, or how often someone speaks or writes about what is the greatest crisis in human history, few listen, even fewer act, and nothing substantive changes. Certainly nothing that matches the scale of the catastrophe. Do people even know there is a crisis, really? The level of apathy amongst governments and corporate power beggars belief, as does the lack of coverage in the mainstream media, such as the BBC. Environmental issues should be headline news every single day. But scan the websites and publications of the mass media, and the environment is barely mentioned. Complacency is reinforced by greed and ignorance. Greed for limitless profits, short-term gain, and material comfort, and ignorance of the scale, range, and urgency of the crisis, and of the connection between lifestyle and environmental ruin. The fact that animal agriculture is responsible for more GGEs than any other sector, for example, is not common knowledge, and when it is known, changes in behavior, where they occur at all, are slow. Cutting out meat, fish, and dairy reduces a person's individual GGEs more than any other single factor, in a positive sign. And for a range of reasons, more people than ever are adopting a vegan diet. That is very true, actually. Or, at least here in California. I don't know about Texas. maybe in Texas, maybe in Austin, particularly in Europe and America. But globally, 90% of the population continues to eat animal produce, and this needs to dramatically change. Dissipating ignorance and cultivating greater awareness is badly needed. Yeah, but I would say that in Europe and America, the lack of, switching to a vegan diet probably only offsets your carbon footprint. Your carbon footprint is quite large, and I'm not sure how much a vegan diet offsets that quite large carbon footprint. Whereas in, other less developed countries, probably everybody there has a way lower carbon footprint. So I don't know, I don't know what the trade-off is. To this end, a coordinated public information program is needed throughout the world. This is a worldwide crisis, and as all of those working in the area know, it requires a unified environment first response. SOP, save our planet. Restoring the planet to health is a major need of our time. Together with the shift in lifestyles, this requires economic systemic change and a reorientation of political priorities. Absolutely. Knowing there is an environmental crisis, claiming to be concerned, but doing little or nothing is pure hypocrisy. To their utter shame, the vast majority of politicians or environmental hypocrites are environmental hypocrites, weak and devoid of vision. They constitute the very embodiment of complacency. They are indebted to big business and have repeatedly shown that they cannot be relied on to initiate the radical policies needed to keep fossil fuels in the ground and repair the environmental carnage mankind has caused. The number one priority of governments around the world is the economy. This is the sacred cow around which they tiptoe and to whom they make their reverential offerings in the hope of being blessed by limitless economic growth, no matter the environmental cost. Where they exist at all, government policies to reduce GGEs are designed and limited by the impact they will have on economic development. As such, they remain totally inadequate. Development takes place within the constructs of an unjust system that is dependent on constant consumption, encourages greed, produces huge quantities of waste, and is maintained by the relentless agitation of desire. These thoroughly negative elements work to the detriment of human beings and are the driving impulses behind behavior that has led to and is perpetuating the environmental crisis. The system demands that irresponsible consumption not only continues, but deepens and expands into areas of the world hitherto relatively untouched by its poison. It obstructs environmentally responsible policies and lacks the flexibility required to face the challenges, certainly within the timescale needed if the planet is to be restored to health. Given these facts, the only sane, rational solution is to change the system to one that allows for an urgent, meaningful response, a sustainable and just system based on altogether different principles and reason for being. Neoliberalism is not a living organism without alternatives, as some devotees of Mammon would have us believe. It is man-made. It is a man-made structure and can therefore be redesigned to meet the urgent social and environmental needs of the time. Possibly. Systemic change and shifts in government policy will not just happen by themselves. It is up to all of us to demand that the environment becomes the #1 priority for governments across the world. I'd say we might have to do something a little more strongly than demand. We're going to have to do a whole lot of things. At the same time, we all need to examine how we live and ensure that we do so in a way that is determined first and foremost by environmental considerations, not by pleasure, convenience, and comfort, as is often the case, but by love. For living in an environmentally responsible way is an act of love. The decisions we make today and in the coming years will affect life on Earth for thousands of years to come. Sacrifices and the breaking of habits are required, and within the spirit of collective individual responsibility, they should be gladly accepted. Every political, business, and lifestyle decision needs to be taken with an understanding of how it affects the environment. And a simple question posed: will this action add to or reduce GGEs? If it will increase them, then don't do it. Consider how you get around. Do you really need that fossil fueled car? Private ownership of cars needs to be drastically reduced, particularly in cities, or outlawed altogether. What you buy and who you shop with, who supplies your energy, and does it come from renewable sources? Where you go on holiday. How about no holiday? How about walking down the street? And can you avoid flying and go by train or bus? If not, go somewhere else. What do you eat? If your diet is based on animal produce, then reduce your intake. Shop based on need. Buy secondhand. Limit how often you wash clothing. Reduce waste. Boycott environmentally abusive companies. Write to your political representatives. Call for a national public information program. Live responsibly and encourage family and friends to do likewise. I encourage all of these things. Complacency, apathy, and hypocrisy coalesce to form the most noxious causes of climate change and environmental vandalism. And until this trinity of destruction is overcome and the crisis is taken seriously by the political class, corporations, and the public at large, nothing substantive will take place, and unless fundamental change occurs and urgently, life on Earth will become increasingly uncomfortable. Ecosystems will continue to collapse, and one dark day in the very near future, it will be too late. The shroud of complacency needs to be thrown off now, today, and widespread action rooted in environmental awareness initiated. Where there is concerted, sustained action, therein lies hope. Therein lies hope. If hope is your bag, if hope is your thing, I happen to be a fan of hope. As much as others would like to look at it as a 4-letter word, I like action too. I like to mix hope with action. I like to be active in trying to generate some kind of hope. Say it with me now, or don't. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, every day brings a lot of mixed emotions. Some days I'm like, lay low and enjoy, what little time is left. Other days I'm like, I really have a strong impulse to rally the troops and get something big going, make all the waves that I could possibly make. And I vacillate between the two here and there every day. At least every day I get to come here and talk about this with y'all. That is the one action that I can push myself toward, and it is helpful indeed to myself, and I believe to others, at least in doing this. Could we be doing more? Always, every single day, always. Could I be doing more? Always, every single day, always. And I try my very best. I know that we all do what we can, and let's all strive to do a little bit better tomorrow. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace. Catch me tomorrow on Head in the Box at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I will be on that show with the good fellows there. See y'all next time.